Eleonora, the violet bloody finger, has grown in strength through the power of dragons. Marika, have mercy on us all.
Hey everyone, I'm Bite-Sized Otaku, hope you're getting through the week okay, and this is Eleonora, the Blood Dragon. An improved version of the Eleonora cosplay, with a few additions thrown in while keeping to the character's theme. We will be exploring how her build competes in the lands between, but like the video and give it to me bite-sized. So for our equipment, we're wearing the altered version of the Drake Knight helm, alongside the Briar armor and the scaled gauntlets and greaves. The altered version of the helmet gives us a more knightly look while maintaining the character's original flavour, and the Briar armour has both the red aesthetic while providing us with better defence and poise. The scaled pieces seem to fit thematically with improved stats, providing us with an overall superior defence and poise leaning towards fire. On a side note, the Briar armour has the ability to deal damage to enemies when we roll into them, similar to the Thorn armour in Dark Souls, but the damage is so minuscule in our instance that it isn't worth using the gear for that ability alone. Then for our weapons, I've doubled up on the Eleonora pole blade, giving us access to a fantastic new moveset while stacking up that passive bleed. Outside of using an additional weapon, there's nothing much more to note outside of a new moveset and the fact that we're still using the Dragon Communion seal. But looking at our talismans, which the vanilla version did not have, I've opted for the Millicent's Prophesis, which will provide us with +5 dexterity and additional damage with successive attacks, which works well as our twin blades can easily proc this talisman's effect. The Lord of Blood's Exaltation will boost our damage by 20% for 20 seconds whenever there is blood loss in the area, which is a no-brainer for our bleed dealing weapons. The Shard of Alexander will boost our skill damage by 15%, which will benefit Blood Dance Blade, and lastly our Bullgoat's Talisman will give us 25% additional poise, helping us to tank some hits. Now I've modified the incantations to utilise the physical dragon abilities, as Drake Knights in lore pursued the strength of dragons from birth, and I think it's a visually nice addition to see Eleonora morphing into a dragon in combat. But outside of visuals, these abilities will help us in battle. Grail's Roar has the same ability of dealing damage and lowering an enemy's attack and defense by 20 and 10%. A new addition is the Dragon Claw, which can be chain cast and does excellent damage within a small area of effect. Then lastly we have the Dragon Maw, which also does fantastic damage by biting at foes in a single cast. Many of these incantations have hyper armor when casting, meaning you won't be easily knocked out of the animation. And I've also thrown in the Kukri for good measure. For our stats, I've gone with 60 Vigor and 25 Endurance, which will leave us with plenty to attack. 28 Faith, 12 Strength, and 21 Dexterity is for the requirements for our equipment, meaning we could pour points into Arcane for 50, which will improve our damage and bleed build up. I've also sprinkled some leftover points into Mind, which will allow us exactly 2 casts of Grail's Roar, instead of the single cast from the vanilla build. And this is based on a level 137 Samurai, with all equipment upgraded 1 level below the maximum, which will avoid you having to use a rare Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. So let's start with the twin blades. We have access to a brilliant jumping guard attack which twirls the blades for great damage and bleed build up. Our running light attack is a thrust, while the heavy version does a swing, which may be great for catching enemies who are running away. Our guard attack is a very brutal volley of swings with both weapons, which can hit the enemy multiple times, and this can be devastating on any type of enemy, but especially those who are light on protection. Our jumping heavy is a downward thrust, while our backstep light attack is a thrust, and the heavy attack does the usual Kung Fu Ballerina twirl. So now we have a much better moveset by combining 2 of these twin blades alongside quicker bleed build up, which helps the build capitalise on its arcane investment. This is especially brutal in PvE, as most enemies are too large and cumbersome to dodge a volley of quick strikes, meaning you can often trigger bleed very easily. Then for our incantations, I tend to use Grail's Roar when the enemy is thinking about attacking, so they get hit during their aggressive charge. Dragon's Claw is great, because if the enemy dodges towards you, they will likely get hit, and if they roll away, the shockwave might still catch them, especially if you slightly delay the follow-up attack. But on Dragon Maw, I'll be honest in saying that landing this in PvP is extremely difficult, as the attack often beams across the room rather than towards the enemy's position, meaning you will want to use this on a stationary opponent.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
All three of these incantations are brilliant in PvE, with Dragon's Maw standing out the most for being the highest single hit damage dealer. Grail's Roar is especially useful because that reduction to a boss's attack and defense helps you chip away at their health, with the bleed being the cherry on the cake. In terms of weaknesses, just be careful when up against your standard rapiers and greatsword users, as we're quick enough to counter most playstyles, but Quick Step or Bloodhound Step combined with any weapon might give them an advantage. Also, due to a lack of ranged attacks on this build, aggressive play is the key while managing your limited stamina, but do play with your opponent's mind by luring them into one of the 3 dragon incantations. Ultimately, this build expands on the original Eleonora, the Violet Bloody Finger, to incorporate a better moveset and additional dragon abilities, which will provide you with more options when engaging with players and bosses alike. You could swap out the dragon incantations with other varieties, or even use other bleed style weapons to your liking, but this build acts as a homage to the deadliest of all the Bloody Fingers, explaining why Yura was so hell bent on defeating her. But let me know your thoughts on the build and of course subscribe. This is Bite Sized Otaku, and I hope you enjoyed.